This episode of Chat Bubbles is brought to you by Netflix. For a free 30-day trial, head over to netflix.com/GameBreakerTV. They'll make almost anything into an MMO these days. We've seen so many popular works turned into an online MMO. We've seen books, we've seen television shows, movies. We've even seen other video games converted to an online format. We've seen books like Lord of the Rings online. We've seen Star Trek. We've seen 2 Star Wars MMOs. We've also seen other games get converted. We've seen World of Warcraft from the Warcraft real-time strategy series. We've seen Phantasy Star get turned into an MMO. Final Fantasy. Hello Kitty Online, for Pete's sake. I mean, almost anything can be converted to an online MMO. And so in this episode of Chat Bubbles, I'd like to hear what popular franchise, or not so popular franchise, just a favorite of yours, would you like to see converted into an MMO? Now, for the purposes of this fantasy conversation that we're having, we're gonna assume that it's actually it gets turned into a good MMO, because I think a lot of people would cringe if they heard like, oh my god, they're gonna turn Thundercats into an MMO, it's gonna be awful or whatever. Well, let's assume that it's not just gonna be like a money grab. It's not just gonna be like something that they're trying to use the franchise to grab some coin and then run away. Let's assume it's gonna be good. So I want to hear what popular. I keep saying popular, but I don't mean only popular. What favorite franchise of yours would you like to see converted into an MMO game? Now, I'm going to actually answer twice. My first answer is just going to be something that I think a lot of people are probably going to answer with, but I just also want to throw in my hat into the mix for, yes, I'd like to see this converted to an MMO, and I think that's going to be Firefly. Firefly was a TV series that was canceled but before it really got a chance to get started, and it's grown. It has a huge cult following now, and a lot of people kind of supported that cast and that whole world, which just, I think it'd be great to turn into an MMO. It's got that mix of sci-fi and like the Wild West, where it's kind of like lawless, and it just has a great sense of humor. It's got some great visual effects. It's got great soundtrack, and then it's got a lot of great characters in it that form archetypes that you could actually see working in an MMO, right? You've got Malcolm Reynolds, who's kind of like the swanky, swashbuckling, swashbuckling kind of hero. He's got the snarky attitude, and kind of a little bit like like a Han Solo type character. You've got that, and then you've got like an engineer like Kaylee. Just very mechanically inclined. You've got the pilot Wash, and then you've got these licensed companions, and you've got the Shepherd Book character, and then you've got River Tam, who's kind of like this progeny genius ninja kind of woman. You just have all these really cool ideas that could really work in a setting that's a mix of sci-fi and the Western theme. So anyway, that's an answer I think a lot of people will have, but I just want to put that out there. But the more obscure answer that I would like to give is a movie I used to watch and used to have a great impact on me when I was young. It's called Krull. And I don't know if you've seen this or not, but Krull is an old school fantasy film, and it's funny, it actually has a couple actors in it that are more popular now. This was kind of one of their earlier movies, but Hagrid from the Harry Potter series, Robbie Coltrane, he was in this movie, and Liam Neeson was in this movie as well. But this is kind of like a dark fantasy world, Krull was, and the reason why I think it'd be a great MMO is it's fantasy, but it's not just like elves and dwarves and fireballs and lightning bolts. It's got a lot of different things. For example, it's mainly human characters, but there's also Cyclops. There's a Cyclops that joins their party, and he's super cool and mysterious and kind of sad because he knows when he's going to die. Like, he's got that vision of the future. He knows when he's going to die. So that always stuck with me. They have some spellcasters in their party. But they're not typical like ones that you see in MMOs. Like the main spellcaster is Ergo the Magnificent, and he can turn himself into different creatures. He's a polymorpher basically. And there's also a seer that joins them briefly, and he can kind of like see into the future. And the main character actually is kind of like a warrior, typical, fighter kind of in your face melee guy, but he's got this magical item called the glaive, And it's kind of like a bladed Chinese star, but it's bigger. It's like this, and it's got blades on all these different points. And he can throw it, and then he controls the trajectory and the path with his mind. So he can make it go all over the place, and he's super, super amazing with it. So that's kind of an interesting twist too. He's just not just a big dumb fighter. He actually has some sort of connection with this weapon, and he can control it that way. But it's got a lot of cool creatures in it, and the main villain in it is called the Beast. He's kind of like this demon. He lives in this fortress called the Black Fortress. And his main defense is that this fortress only stays in place for 24 hours, and then it teleports to another location. And no one ever knows where it's going to go next. So if you can't find the Black Fortress, infiltrate it, and take out the Beast within a 24-hour period, it's going to be gone, and your chance is over. So it was just cool to have that as a villain in a fortress that just floats around. They have fire mares that can fly through the sky. They have crystal spiders and eerie webs and quicksand that kills you really bad. And oh, I forgot the main kind of like, they don't have like a bunch of orcs that attack you. They have these things called slayers. And the slayers were these like kind of like animated suits of armor, but when you killed them, they made a horrible sound, and this larva kind of alien bug thing came out of their head and burrowed into the ground. And they didn't use swords. They used this gun, this kind of like shoots a laser once, and then they flipped it around and they would hit you with it, kind of like a sword afterward. But so a whole bunch of things like that just kind of made it not so fantasy, but fantasy. And it's kind of dark, and they start off with like 40 members in their party, and like most of them die off, and it's just kind of like a brutal kind of experience. But go see Krull and tell me what you think about it, and let me know if you think it would be a great MMO. I would love to play it, and let me know what your franchise ideas are for what would you like to see converted into an MMO. And don't forget to stay dialed into Game Breaker for all your video game news, and I wish everybody has a fantastic day. Take care.